Good evening, everybody, and welcome to our first Tesla webinar. I want to introduce Aaron Jones and Chris Martino here. We're excited to bring Tesla to you. For all of our existing customers, I want to announce that we're going to be launching our official Tesla product, our Tesla technical support on April 1st. And that team will be headed up by Aaron Jones, the gentleman who's going to be providing the information to you tonight. So whether you love these vehicles or hate them, as professional shop owners and technicians, there's a lot of money to be made servicing these vehicles. So with that, I'm going to hand it over to Chris Martino. So thanks for joining.
Thanks, Kevin. All right. So one of the things we come across when customers call to access technical support to any hybrid or EV vehicle is we ask for a minimum certificate or minimum compliance certificate for the customers to send out. So as you can see here, you can see the customers, we're really looking for some kind of minimum safety certificate. You can usually get those through like an 8-hour course or a 4-hour course. If you're having issues finding them, Opus IVS, we've paired with CarQuest Technical Institute on a safety hybrid EV vehicle safety course. And you can see that here. The link is it's cti.formstack.com. And if you follow the link, and the link will also be in the chat to get this course. The course will be it's $50 per registrant, and it's to the person, to the tech that it is. So if Tech A takes the course, Tech A has to call for support and receive support. So again, that link will be in the chat in here, and you can click on that and register. And I believe what I'm going to do is pass it on to Brandon and talk about our webinar offer. Brandon?
Hello, good afternoon, everyone. All right, so as Kevin and Chris mentioned, so we're doing a Tesla introduction webinar. We're really kicking off our Tesla offering, both on the support side and product side. Aaron will talk a little bit more about that. For tonight's webinar, as always, we have an offer. Of course, try to support us if you are in the market for something or have any interest. The offer tonight is $1,000 off on the purchase of a DrivePro Remote Unlimited. Okay, so do take advantage of that if you're in the need for anything. Of course, our claim to fame is our support offering, and that is unlimited with the purchase of that DrivePro Remote. So do take advantage of that if you have a need. With that said, we're going to jump right into the webinar, as I believe Aaron has plenty of content to cover in the next hour. Once he is done with his content, I will be fielding him some of the questions that come through the chat. So do please type them in. I'll answer any that I can answer immediately, and I'll save some for him that are more specific to the Tesla offering. So do type any questions into the chat that you may have, and we will try to get to all of those after the content has been completed. So with that, Aaron's going to take over now.
Well, howdy, everybody. My name is Aaron Jones. I just heard a crazy noise from my mic, so I hope I'm still up. But I'm here to walk you guys through a little bit of an introduction to Tesla. A little bit about me. I have started my career at a local Firestone around me here in North Carolina, where I kind of got my hands on everything. After that, I was with BMW for about 4 years. I think some of you guys might have worked with me on some cases. If you have, I'm sorry. But then I moved on to Tesla, and I was with them for coming up on 5 years almost, where I spent the last year and a half as a supervisor or foreman type person. And it got me really excited to share this information with you guys today, because I feel like for a while, especially in that position when I see other independent shops that are around the area, there's been like a black cloud or a hands-off approach to repairing or maintaining these vehicles. And there's multiple reasons for that. Whether it is the lack of information, the lack of access to the software, availability of parts, or just the unknown of the brand. I've seen it all. So what I'm really hoping to accomplish today is to just kind of open some doors, answer some questions, and spark some ideas. Because, I mean, at the end of the day, these cars need maintenance just like ICE vehicles, minus the oil change, of course. But, I mean, brakes are brakes. Tires are tires. They need windshields. They need alignments. Even when it comes to non-maintenance items, these vehicles are easier than any ICE engine I've ever had to repair. Any ICE car, for the most part, they're easy. A couple of other reasons why this is so important to get your hands on is that there are still states that will not allow Tesla to build a brick and mortar facility. So that means your customers that have the Mercedes or the BMWs or the Dodges that are coming in for you for the other work are driving 2 to 3 hours over state lines to either have maintenance or non-warranty items repaired when they could be coming to their local neighborhood mechanic, technician, diagnostician, whatever you guys specialize in. It's very easy to hop into the Tesla brand. Another big point to remember is that the production spike on these vehicles are huge. Last year alone, they delivered 937,000 cars. In the Tesla world, delivering and selling a car are two completely different things. Delivered shows you what your production rate is in your neighborhood today. Selling is what your production rate is for the next 6 months, because most of these cars are still built to order. They sold 309 of these cars within the last 3 months of of 2021, so quarter four. So what I'm here to do is give you a head start, because it's always easier to be ahead of the curve than it is to be behind it. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my camera off so you guys can look at all my fun images. And we're going to get started with a little bit of information about Tesla. So founded in 2003 by Martin and Mark. Elon had always been around. He was an investor. He helped with some of the designs. He was on the board for a little bit, but he didn't take over that CEO position until about 2008. And then they produced their first car in 2009. Since then, at the end of 2021, they had delivered over 2 million units. Now, this is kind of important to go back to what I said earlier, because 937,000 of those were last year. Every vehicle in production has a 5-star crash safety rating. The Model S, X, and 3 all achieve the lowest overall probability of injury of any vehicle ever tested by the U.S. government. And the fun one, they sent a Roadster into space. It was Elon's personal Roadster. It was used to test a SpaceX load for the rocket they were sending out. Checked the distance this morning. It's currently 234 million miles away from Earth, which means that it went over its 36,000 mile warranty about 55,000 times. So, speaking about the Roadster, that was the first production vehicle. It was produced from 2008 to 2012. It was based off of a Lotus Elise chassis, but it only really carried 7 to 10% of the Lotus in its whole build. The code name of it was Dark Star, which I really wish they would have kept, but it ended up donning the Roadster badge. They only sold about 2,400 of these, and they sold them in 30 countries. So these probably won't be the ones that you guys run into very often. And if you do, they're going to be for tires or alignments or inspections or track inspections, something along those lines, because the diagnostic system, it just requires a little bit more particular bits. It needs a special formatted USB stick, and it needs a parsing software that can take that information and put it into Excel sheet. So if we take a peek at the platform, when these cars first came out, they ran at to about $80,000 to $129,000 brand new. Came with a 3-year, 36,000 mile warranty, and they were the coolest thing on the block. They had a single motor in the rear, so it was a rear-wheel drive only, and it was a 3-phase AC induction motor. It was the only vehicle of the line that had a vertical stack battery pack. So it sat behind the driver and passenger seat and the trunk. At that time, it had a 53 kilowatt pack, weighed about 993 pounds, and they did have an upgradable pack. It was the 83 kilowatt. It was called the Roadster 3.0 pack. It kind of came and left, and then came, and now I think it's officially left. Like, I don't think they're going to produce it anymore, but it's always up in the air. So rated range on this thing was 244 miles, which at the time was kind of alleviating that range anxiety that the world had. You're going to hear me talk about range, or you're going to see range a lot. I just want to make sure you guys understand that range is EPA rated. So the Environmental Protection Agency, they have a standardized test and standardized proving ground that they use for all electric vehicles. So that way that every vehicle has a standard mileage rating, and these aren't Tesla's numbers or car and driver's numbers. 0 to 60 was pretty quick. Either one that you got, you were coming in under 4 seconds, which is a heck of a lot of fun. If we take a peek at the interior, over on the left, it's pretty basic. You can see that you kept the Lotus steering wheel. You have that little digital screen over in the left-hand side. Now, this screen was kind of your basic information. It did have vehicle settings. It had your charge rate, your tire pressure stuff, but not too fancy for the age. To the middle, you see that you changed gears with a nice little joystick. You just had your park, reverse, and drive, and then neutral was kind of swung in the middle. And then the next picture, this is the updated 2.0 2.5 Roadster interior. You can see that they moved the screen to the center. You had push-button gear changes. You got heated seats, and it was so fancy they even gave you a glove box. This is the only Tesla vehicle that actually uses a keyblade. You would stick the keyblade in the standard Lotus ignition, turn it on, hit the brakes, shift it into gear, and you are on your way. Here's a quick snap of the screen. You can see on your left, you have your standard charge range, your speed, the outside temp, a couple of buttons that would take you to some other submenus. And then on the right, there's that super electric-driven submenus they gave you where it showed you how many barrels of oil you had saved from driving this electric car. Charging. So, a little funky. The charge port was actually located under the gas door on the driver's rear quarter panel. It had a unique 4-pin connector. This was before the J1772 connector really got standardized, so they kind of had to make it up on the run. The connector came with the vehicle, or the cable came with the vehicle, and what you would do is you would insert it into the charge port, turn it clockwise until it locked, and then you would hit the switch up, and it would start charging. Now, these cars would usually charge to about the 240 mile mark at like 5-ish hours. If you had it on a 240 outlet, and depending on the amperage, you could get it there in about 5-ish hours. So while the Roadster was a really cool start, it was this car that really put Tesla on the map. This is the Model S, and in the Tesla world, we call it the pre-facelift nose cone edition. We can thank a good friend named Franz. I'm going to talk about him quite a bit throughout the presentation. He was the chief design engineer for this car, and then he went on to be the chief design engineer for the rest of the lines. He's also known for being a major component of designing the Pontiac Solstice. So do with that as you will. The really big thing that stands out on the outside of this car are those door handles. Now, those door handles will extend and retract. So they extend as you walk up to the vehicle or you have unlocked the vehicle so that you can gain entry. But if you lock it and you start driving away, those do retract back in to give it that sleek appearance. Now, I do want to stop and just talk about those door handles real quick. Those door handles are a very easy repair. They do fail. They're a moving part, one of the most moving parts on these vehicles. And the two failure points of these cars are usually a paddle gear that extends the door handle out, which is $7, or the micro switches that send the signal to the latch to unlatch. And I believe those run to somewhere around $40 or $60. You don't have to de-energize the high voltage system. There's no coding. There's no calibrations. It's an easy repair. Just one of those that I'll point out throughout the presentation to just kind of show you how simple these things get. We call it the nose cone because it has that black oval on the front. Removing that black oval actually shows you a couple of jump posts. We'll get on that a little bit later, but that design does not carry over to the refresh. So we'll hop into the interior. First thing that jumps out to you is that massive 17-inch media control unit. That is the brain of the vehicle. But while it does a lot of important things for the vehicle, it does everything for the customer. It's your climate control, your navigation, your media, your charge rate, all of your subsettings, your quick functions. It's all located in there. Now, while the brain of this beast has to be replaced by Tesla at this time, just for security and privacy reasons, the screens do often delaminate with age. Age and heat are the two big things, and they'll start sending little bubbles through there. That and the instrument cluster have that issue. Those are also very easy repairs and completely redo the look of the interior. The rest of the interior is simple but pretty elegant. You see your Mercedes-style gear shifter behind the steering wheel. You've got your normal steering wheel buttons. You got the big instrument cluster in the front that shows you your charge rate, your media, your speed. Now, this vehicle has basically a silhouette of the Model S as a key, and it's a proximity key. So once you're inside the vehicle and it's with you, it will get started. Let's see. Drivetrain options. So this vehicle was never offered as a front-wheel drive vehicle. Actually, none of the Teslas were offered as front-wheel drive vehicles. Came in 3 options. The base model came with a large rear drive unit. The D models, which are the dual motor or all-wheel drive versions, came with a small front drive unit and a small rear drive unit. And then you had the performance models that came with a small front drive unit, but that large rear drive unit from the rear-wheel drive only. Now, the performance models usually came with staggered wheels and tires. They had red brake calipers, and they had a P badge somewhere around the car to let you know that that was a performance vehicle. They're also very fun to drive. So in 2017, the Model S got a refresh. It got a new bumper, some new headlights, some new wheels, but it also got a little bit more performance, got a little bit more power. Drivetrain is going to be the same as the nose cone car with your base, your D models, and your performance. And some of the other things that they share are the battery configurations. Now, this car was produced for a very long time. So it has been through its iterations of battery packs, its revisions, its trials, its errors. So there's a lot of them. With that comes smaller production runs or larger production runs. And the battery pack that stuck through the tail of time is that 100 kilowatt pack that's still in production today. But while we're on the subject of batteries, let's talk about them a little bit. Honestly, I could have a whole other webinar on battery packs. But the truth is, there's really not that much information you need to know about this battery pack to repair these cars. I'm going to break it down for you a little bit more than what the normal Tesla person will know. So if we get started, you can see that it's just a skateboard with motors. It's an outside battery module that's held onto the bottom of the car with 16 bolts. One of the first questions I feel like I'm going to get is it serviceable? And the answer is yes. There are companies that sell the modules, they sell the battery management boards, the high voltage cabling, the high voltage fuse. There is a market for the serviceability of these battery packs. Can you buy that battery pack from Tesla? No, it is restricted to the general public at this time. While I don't have any experience rebuilding battery packs other than the research that I have done, that's what I would suggest for you. Do that research. Make sure you have the proper tools, you have the proper lift, and you understand the precautions that you need to make sure you keep yourself and the people around you safe. So today, I'm going to talk about the battery pack on the left-hand side. That is a 100 kilowatt second generation battery pack. There it is with the top off. So as you can see, got some modules. This battery pack weighs in at about 1,200 pounds. It has a nominal voltage of about 350 volts DC, and it is a liquid-cooled lithium-ion battery. It has 15 cells, excuse me, 16 cells, 16 modules. You have your 14 in the middle, and then you have 2 that are double stacked all the way to the left. All the way to the right, you have your auxiliary tray, and this has your contactors, some of your low voltage logic connectors. It also has where the high voltage lines are going to run out of. Over to your left, you have your coolant rapid mate, which is the instant connector to the vehicle to cool the battery pack, and your high voltage fuse. So here is the module. These specific modules are set up in what's called a 6S 86P. So that means that there are 6 groups of 86 cells, and the cells are ran in parallel, but the groups are ran in series. And they do this for a couple of different reasons. It's really to increase the attainable amp hour. It is better for stable current. And it's a super common practice. The laptop you're watching this on probably does the same thing with their batteries. So as you can see on the right-hand side, it's got coolant passages that run up and down each channel. It's got an inlet, it's got an outlet for the coolant pipes that run down the cage of the actual pack. And there's 516 cells in each module. So in the world of Tesla, we talk about 3 different cell types. You have the 18650, the 2170, and the 4680. The reason they're called this is because the 18650 is 18 millimeters wide, 65 millimeters tall. 2170 is 21 millimeters wide, 70 meters tall. 4680, 46 millimeters wide, 80 millimeters tall. The 18650 is found in every S and X, even to this day. The 100 kilowatt battery pack that we've been talking about has 8,256 of those in that battery pack. So if you look over to the right, it kind of looks like they're just hanging out in the junk drawer. Very nice. There's a little bit more science behind that. They've got like electrodes that are zapped to them, and yeah, but that's them. They're standing in line with each other. These 18650s, they're the same battery cell that you're going to find in like rechargeable flashlights, electronic cigarettes. Some of your DrivePro cables, they're going to actually have the 18650 in the middle of it to help keep power. So the Model 3 and Y, they're going to use the 2170, and they're working on a new configuration with the 4680s. So I hope that this kind of broke it down. I went from big to little, so I hope that helps you understand the battery pack a little bit more, because I'm ready to talk about by far my favorite car that they've produced. That's the Model S Palladium. It is gorgeous. If you haven't seen one on the streets, go find one. They're so pretty. The only thing that it really takes from the refresh Model S is it looks like a Model S. It's got new bumpers, new trim, new cameras, new wheels, new drivetrain, new battery, new HVAC system, new AC. Everything is different. But today, as of today, the Plaid version of this vehicle is the fastest accelerating sedan that you can purchase that is in production. It sits at about a little over 1,000 horsepower. And boy, are they quick. So let's take a peek at the interior. It's changed a lot. As you can see, the 17-inch screen got turned into that landscape mode. The instrument cluster is a little bit larger. There's also another screen in the back. And that screen has Netflix and Hulu and YouTube. They kind of keep the kids busy while you're driving to the beach and while you're just destroying every Hellcat and Camaro and M5 that you see on 40. Other than that, you've got a beautiful white interior, full glass roof, wireless charging up front, and the yoke steering wheel. That yoke steering wheel is completely legal. It's not bad to drive when you are maintaining like a 35 and up speed. It does get a little bit tricky for like parking lot maneuvers and moving it around the garage. You go to reach for the top and, well, there's no top. The other thing that there is not is any columns behind that steering wheel. So your turn signals, your horn, and all of your light controls are going to be found on that steering wheel. Now, these cars do drive a little bit differently. These cars come with both the key fob and the key cards. And to put this in gear, let me grab my little pin here. You see this little car up here? Now, what you do is once the vehicle is readied up, you'll put your finger on it, and you'll either pull up or down to put it in drive or reverse. And then when you're in drive or reverse, right there, that little dot right here, there will be a P button to put it in park. Now, let's say for some reason, body shop or the screen won't illuminate or the screen is frozen. There's going to be a secret gear shift down here. Now, sometimes you have to tap this panel a few times. Sometimes you have to just really put some pressure on it. But I have better pictures of it here. So over on the left, you can see how you kind of have to drag the car up or down to put it in drive or reverse. And over to your right is the is that screen I was talking about. So, drivetrain options for this guy. They gutted the rear-wheel drive. These cars either come dual mode or all-wheel drive or tri-motor all-wheel drive. They stole the permanent magnet idea and kind of the design from the Model 3 and Y, and they transferred it over to the new Palladiums. So the dual motor gets 2 AC permanent magnets, and the tri-motor gets 3, so they get 2 on the rear. Those are also carbon sleeved to make them handle the RPMs much better. The battery configuration, it's that same 100 kilowatt pack that we know and love. It's a little bit different though. It has the 18650 cells, but it uses the battery management system out of a Model Y or 3. And instead of 16 modules, it now has just 5. So that's the Model S lineup, the sleek guy. Now we're going to talk about this beast, Model X. First things first, the Falcon Wing doors. They are set up on a dumbbell hinge profile so that they can open in tight spaces. And then they have a handful of sensors to allow them to shut without crushing limbs or without hitting your neighbor while you're in the parking lot. So this car, we can thank Franz, our friend from the Model S. We can thank him on this one as well. They started delivering this vehicle in the last quarter of 2015. It currently holds the Guinness World Record for the heaviest tow by an electric production passenger vehicle. It towed a Boeing 787 down the airstrip at a Melbourne airport. Now, note, for any technician, shop owner, anyone who's going to work on this car, service advisor, whatever, 90% of the time, these wheels and tires are going to be staggered. They come from the factory with staggered wheels. So unless the customer has set up a square set of wheels and tires, they are going to be staggered. So just, make sure you take a note of that. If you remember one thing, that's the most important. All right, interior. The interior of the Model X is kind of the same as the S. The driver's stuff is the same steering wheel, media control unit, instrument cluster, all that's the same. It's not till you get to the SUV part that it changes. It does have a massive windshield. It has 2 top glasses in each of the Falcon Wing doors, and the hatch has a pretty big glass. So it's got a very stellar look while driving down the road. Now, it came with the option of captain chairs with a 3rd row, or a manual bench seat with a 3rd row. Now, the captain chairs, they are electric. They do tilt forward and back, and so you can get to the track when you take out that little bit of hard carpet underneath. Not super hard to get to, but some of the track position sensors on these do go bad, and it doesn't allow for easy entry. Sometimes they won't tilt either, so you just remove the seat back on those captain chairs, and you can easily access those. Like the Model S, the drivetrain is, except for they never had a rear-wheel drive version. It was either base model all-wheel drive or performance all-wheel drive. It kind of shared the same batteries as well. But you have to remember that the X did come out a little bit later. So the S batteries had already gone through the trials and tribulations, had their cuts. And some of the S batteries that were still in production just didn't make sense for the X. Range wasn't there, performance wasn't there. So this is what they ran. And until this day, they still run the 100 kilowatt hour battery pack. But like the S, the X also has a Palladium. To be honest, there's not a lot known about this to the general public. It just kind of started being released at the beginning of 2022. So I couldn't find many pictures of it. So if you want to see the interior of this one, you'll have to just go see it in person. But like the S, the only thing that's really the same is the appearance. It's got a complete and total makeover. So drivetrain is going to be the same as the S, the dual motor all-wheel drive or the tri-motor all-wheel drive. And it's also got the same battery pack. So the S and the X, they really did their job. And what their job was to produce a high-line vehicle so that Tesla could have the funding to provide an affordable vehicle. And that's what this car is. So while the S and X got Tesla on the map, the Model 3 and its companion, the Model Y, is really what got Tesla in everybody's house. A good friend, Franz, I told you guys we were going to talk a lot about him. He said in 2013, he said this Model 3 was going to be an Audi A4, 3 Series C-Class type of vehicle, but it was going to offer range, affordability, and performance. And he was completely right. So much so that this Model 3 outsold the BMW 3 Series in 28 European countries last year. This is going to be the car that rolls into your shop. This is going to be the car that rolls in for tires, for an alignment, for a windshield, a charge port door because little Jimmy kept opening it without pressing the button. This is the car that everyone's neighbor, their friend, their cousin have. And these are going to be flooding because while a majority of them have gotten there, a lot more of them are not quite outside of their 4-year, 50,000-mile warranty. But they will be soon. So these are going to be what's popping up and asking, can you do this? Taking a peek at the interior. While it doesn't share the same razzle-dazzle that we saw in some of the higher-end like S's and X's, it's still a gorgeous interior. Full glass roof. You got your windshield, your roof glass, and your large back glass. You see the landscape touchscreen That actually came from the 3 platform, and they just took it to the Palladium. You've got that wood trim that runs all the way across the dash, and behind that is actually vents. So the climate control runs the length of the dash. One thing that you don't see is an instrument cluster. This is your instrument cluster. This is going to hold your speed, your gears. This is how you open the frunk. You open the trunk. This is how you turn on your windshield wipers, your navigation, your media, your heated seats. That little car on the bottom left-hand corner is actually going to open up a set of sub-menus. So you can change your driving profiles, your autopilot settings. It's just going to do everything. Important fact about the 3 is that these do not come with a key fob. These come with like a hotel key type key card. But a majority of the customers use the phone as key method. And what I mean by that is once you're in proximity of the vehicle, it's going to unlock. Once you sit down, it knows your phone's in there, so it's going to start. So it's very important that when your customers drop off the car, get their key card from them. Because if not, you're going to have them remote start it for you every 30 minutes. Drivetrain options. This was the birthplace of that permanent magnet motor. Base models still to this day come rear-wheel drive with one permanent magnet, and dual motor and performance come with a permanent magnet motor in the rear and an AC induction motor in the front. As far as battery configurations, now this one did go through a little bit of trial as well. To this day, the rear-wheel drive still uses the 50 kilowatt-hour pack, and the performance in the dual motor uses the 80. Now these are structured a little bit differently. They're a little lighter. They come in at about 850 pounds, but they have 4 modules that are 100 volts apiece. And 2 modules are tied together in series, and the other 2 modules are tied together in series. Then at the tip of that, they're bounded together by a pyro fuse that is known to blow in an accident in the case of high voltage issues. It's just to make the platform a lot safer for your first responders or your tow companies, just something along those lines. So the next one, the Model 3 hadn't even made its debut yet before Tesla was just dangling this in front of our face. They said that they wanted to give us an electric SUV, electric tiny SUV, for a tiny SUV price. They didn't want to call it a crossover, but that's kind of what it is. The first rendition of this had falcon wing doors, and I've never been so happy for them not doing something. It started delivering to customers around March of 2020. It was also the first vehicle that was assembled in the European Gigafactory in Giga Berlin. This has been the new brainchild for Tesla. It's kind of the one that's getting all the experiments done. If you read any of the new articles about what they're doing in Texas with it, unicasting for the front and the rear, structural battery packs, using those new cells. I mean, this is the fun one now. The interior is basically the same as the 3, so much so that those are Model 3 seats. They're just on risers. It's kind of like the Model X. It's when you get into the back where things get a little different. They offer it in a 2-row 5-seater or a 3rd-row 7-seater. And the 7-seater has a good amount of room in it. Enough for some little kids back there. These also have the key card. So remember, super important to grab these. Oh, drivetrain options. That base model ran online for ordering maybe a week to a month. It was a very, very limited production. While it was known to be one of the most efficient electric vehicles made, it just didn't meet the standards. Elon didn't like the range. It didn't sell very well. Really, the only reason I put it up there so is if you get one in the shop, you don't think you're crazy because you've seen a rear-wheel drive Model Y. The rest of the Model Ys, the dual motor or the performance, they rock that dual motor setup. Permanent motor in the rear, AC induction in the front. Battery configurations right now for the Model Y are just 170 kilowatt hour pack. But I suspect we'll probably see something in the future from this this battery production plant in Texas, with them making those new Model Ys out there. So that's the lineup. Those are all the cars, and now they're at your shop. So let's talk about getting in them and driving them. As you can see, the S and the X is got that key fob I was talking about earlier. It's just a very broad image of a Model S. The 3 and the Y have those key cards, but remember, the customers are going to use their phone as key. And the Palladiums come with both. Now, all of those vehicles can be unlocked and locked and started using the customer's account and the Tesla mobile app on their phone. So, with the S, a double tap on 1 will open the trunk. A double tap on 3 will open the frunk. A double tap on 2 will unlock the car, while a single tap will lock it. On the 3 and Y, the key card has to be touched against the driver's side B pillar. Putting it on the passenger B pillar won't do anything, as there's no electronics over there. But once you're inside the car, you'll put the key card in that little area. Note, the cars do not come with that fancy border, but I couldn't find a picture without it. So just know that the key card does need to go in that area, and then you can ready it up by hitting the brakes. If you're using the key card for the Palladiums, same place on the B pillar, but the key cards will just go on the wireless charger. Can I program keys? It's a little complicated right now, just given the privacy and security reasons. If it's an issue with all keys lost, then no, you cannot. Right now, they need to be programmed at a service center. But you have some key cards that already work, and the customer has some key cards that they want to pair to give to their cousins or aunts or whatever. You can pair those through a sub menu in the locking and safety tab on the car without any need for diagnostic software. So you've got the car, it's on your lot, but it's dead. How do you get enough power to it to get it inside the shop to start diagnosis? We're going to start with that nose cone S. Now remember, I said that black oval comes off, and you're just going to use a plastic trim tool remover, and you're just going to pop that little oval off. Once you take that oval off, there are 2 little posts over there to the side that you're going to put power to. Now, while you can use another vehicle to give power to the car, it's not recommended. Honestly, easier and smarter to just use a jump pack or a jump box if you have one. The refresh made it a little bit easier, kind of. Now you actually get to these loops from the inside of the arch. You take a little trim tool, you start on the passenger side, and you pop that arch liner just a little bit further out. They will be orange, and you don't pull super hard on them. What you're actually doing is you're releasing the latch on the hood latch. So you release the primary, you go over to the driver's side, and you'll release the secondary. Once you've got the hood open, you'll remove that plastic apron in front of the frunk, and you'll actually see the 12 volt after you take off the HEPA filter tent. So 2 plastic pieces out, and you'll be able to put your jump pack right on there. Important things about closing the frunk. If you cannot slam the hood of this car like you would an ICE vehicle, they're aluminum. So if you go to slam it, 1, the hood shocks aren't going to like it because they have hydraulic hood shocks. But 2, it's possible to put a dent in that little middle red square where the striker is. So you slowly bring that hood down, and you put a slow but firm pressure until you hear both click, click of the hood going in. And this is for all of them. This is for the S, the X, the 3, the Y. Just be careful shutting that front. The X made life a little easier for you. There is a little tow hook cover on the front point of that bumper, right where that arrow is pointing. Once you remove that, you release 2, they're either orange or red, depending on the year and the model, two little ropes that hang down, and they'll be labeled A and B. You pull A first to release the primary and B second to release the secondary. Once you've got the frunk out, or excuse me, once you've got the frunk open, you just remove this little piece right here, and then you will have access to your jump post. And then there is a grounding post over to the right, just underneath the passenger wiper blade. That will give you enough power to get the auto front doors open on the Model X. The 3 and Y made life the easiest. You push in the tow hook cover. It gives you 2 leads. You put your power on those 2 leads, and it actuates the hood latch for you. You pull that same little piece of plastic that you would on a Model X, and your 12 volts right there. That is by far the easiest 12-volt battery that I have ever replaced on any car, ever. So just a couple precautions. Don't use a Tesla to jumpstart another car. It just doesn't work that way. The 12-volt doesn't work that way, so don't do it. You'll hurt some things. Like I said earlier, while you can use a vehicle to power up a Tesla, let it be your absolute last resort. And avoid short-circuiting or mixing up the cables. It can cause a little bit of drama in some of the low-voltage controllers. One thing I did want to note about these 12 volts do often fail on vehicles. Honestly, it should be the first thing that you check when you get a vehicle off-road or tow-in situation. They're put under a lot of load. I mean, they control a lot of low-voltage controllers before the contactors close. They get fluctuated during charging. If anyone's ever depleted their high-voltage battery, it will instantly kill the 12-volt because that's the only thing maintaining any low-voltage power. They're nothing fancy. They're lead-acid batteries. Read the service instructions before you replace one. But this is another thing that you shouldn't be afraid of. I will say that the Palladiums and the new 3s and Ys that were released in like 2022 do have a 15-volt lithium-ion auxiliary battery instead of a 12-volt. And those just need to be taken care of at the service center at this time. It's just too new and supplies are too short and all that good stuff. So cars in your shop. You want to charge it up a little bit, or you're just doing some repairs and you want to give it a little bit of juice. One thing I will say, don't worry too much about discharging the vehicle while you're working on it. It takes hours of the AC or the heat constantly running for you really to put a dent in the range. And I mean, most of these cars are ranging at like 300 miles anyway, so it takes a while. So the first option of charging is going to be that universal mobile charger. This is included with every vehicle, and it comes with an adapter for a 110 volt or 120 volt outlet. Now that charges at about 3 to 4 miles an hour, but it's good if like you're doing tires or a brake flush and you just want to give them a little bit of juice while they're in there as a courtesy. There is adapters. There's adapters everywhere for it. You can get, the most common one is the NEMA 1450 adapter, and that's the updated dryer outlet adapter. That's going to charge it at about 30-ish miles an hour, give or take the amperage that you are actually pushing to that outlet. The second option will be your wall-mounted connector. I'd suggest this if you're going to work on Teslas. It charges at about 42 to 44 miles an hour, and it needs to be hardwired to at least a 60 amp breaker. But I do want to take a second to talk about this charger, because charging is billable time. This kind of opens a platform for shop owners. You'll have customers sometimes come up to you and they go, look, I really just don't know. I don't want to store my vehicle for the 2 weeks that I'm going to be traveling. Do you have the facilities? There's your charger. Let's say the customer's vehicle just needs to be charged, or you even have these outside of your shop. You can let the general public use it. Tesla is actually working on this. They're going to be sending a firmware for these where you can set up an account and you can price charging sessions for chargers outside of your service center. If this is something that interests you, There's more information about it at tesla.com/commercial-charging. If that's not right, you can find it on the Tesla support page. But they want these wall-mounted connectors outside of people's shops because the Tesla population, if they're not close to a supercharger, they rely on things like this. And if they can't find this, that's when they'll use that J1772 adapter. Now, this is just an adapter that goes from that common charging adapter to Tesla, and it works with most level 2 charging stations. But where does it go? The charge ports for now are all located on the driver's side quarter panel. The S and the X have little triangles that sit in front of the taillights. That can be opened by the charging handle. They can be opened by the little button to the left of the triangle door. And they can be opened on the inside of the screen. Now, the 3s and the Ys are in the same location, but instead of opening outward, they open upward. And they can be opened using the same functions. Now, like any moving parts, these fail. You do have to de-energize the high voltage system because you are going close to the charge port. But the replacement is really not that hard. The only thing is, once you get it in, you've got to calibrate it using Toolbox, but the calibration is super quick. Now, you may be looking at me, or not looking at me because I turned the camera off, but you might be saying to me, Aaron, what's Toolbox? Well, Toolbox is Tesla's web-based diagnostic software. This is where all the magic happens. This is your coding, your programming request, your activations, your calibrations, your DTC viewing, your DTC clearing. Everything happens on this portal. It's currently supporting Model 3s and Ys and S and Xs with Intel processors. A little bit of difficulty behind the processors, but the best way to guarantee they have an Intel is that the vehicle was produced 2018, March of 2018 or later. Now, customers can opt into an infotainment upgrade where they have the Intel processor installed on their vehicle, but you would need to ask them for that. There are also websites like Electric that will show you the processor if you go to the website in the web browser that's built into the vehicle. These subscriptions can be purchased from service.tesla.com. You can also purchase the service repair instructions, links to bulletins, links to EPCs, and all the wiring diagrams. Now, they're two separate subscriptions, but they can both be purchased from the service.tesla.com. To connect from vehicle to laptop, you need two diagnostic cables. You need one for the Model 3 and the Y, which is a square 5-pin connector to Ethernet. And then you need one for the S and the X. That's a rounded coaxial-like cable to Ethernet. They go here. The 3 and the Y are going to be located in the conventional OBD2 port. There's no port there, but that's where that plug is. Pre-August of 2014, the plug is going to be on the driven side end cap of the instrument cluster. So if it's a left-hand drive Model S, it's going to be right there on the left-hand side. And if it's a right-hand drive Model S, it'll be on the right-hand side. 99% of the other ones are going to have them underneath that black cubby. And to get that cubby out, you put both hands in there, and you'll press kind of firmly and a little bit snappy down to disengage two metal clips. And you'll pull the cubby out, and then you'll get your hands in there, and you'll fish out that connector. Now, sometimes when there was a full moon and you had a special configuration with a different center console, they put the cables here along this edge. Now, you just pull this trim piece out and you'll find the diag cable here. So if you don't find it here or here, this is where it is. Most Tesla technicians move this cable back under here just for ease, but just so that you guys know. Boom, boom, boom. All right, car's been diagnosed, and now you need parts. I feel, just in full transparency, this was probably one of the biggest pain points for independent shops and independent body shops that weren't inside the Tesla network. Good news is that your suppliers and your third parties are starting to produce these quality parts for these cars. I mean, heck, there is a market for cabin filters and brake fluid, but you're starting to see like door handle repair kits being made, and a bunch of different things running down the line. But let's say you couldn't find a decent quality used part, or you couldn't get one from your supplier and you need to order it directly from Tesla. Well, you can do that at the epc.tesla.com. The hard truth is that the service centers just do not have the inventory to handle and supply independent shops. They order their parts per appointment, so it's not like they really have the manpower or the ability to supply parts to other people. So what Tesla did was they cut out the middleman. They do ask you to fill out this application, and this application could be found at the base website. You go to that top right-hand corner in the hamburger menu, and then you hit application form parts ordering. They're going to want to know a little bit of information about the shop. They're going to see some pictures of the outside of the shop, just to make sure that FedEx, UPS, or their local carrier has a safe location to put your packaging, and a little bit of information about insurance, just to make sure if one of your really expensive parts that you've ordered from them gets stolen, that you have coverage. But once the application has been reviewed and you are up and running, you will be able to go into this EPC and just select parts like you're shopping on Amazon. And then these parts get delivered directly from the parts distribution center to your front door. So it was a good cutout of the middleman. Oh, I'm done. There's a webinar offer one more time just for you guys to review. You want to go over it again, Brandon?
Yeah, I just Aaron said it all. There's a webinar offer to review, so definitely take advantage of that if you're in the market for something, or if you're not in the market for something but you like to buy all tools like me. We did have a couple questions roll in, so I will let me sift through those real quick. Aaron, I don't think there was anything crazy, but definitely a couple questions that rolled in. So it looks like one of the questions was a little bit general, but they were asking what are some of the estimated costs on high voltage battery replacements, or at least battery parts. Is that something that you're aware of, Aaron?
Yeah, so it kind of fluctuates a little bit. Really depends on the battery pack that you are getting. Here, I'll throw myself back on camera for you guys. And the refurbishment level of that battery pack. Now, Model S to X packs can range from about $13,000 to $15,000 a pack from Tesla. So it's about an engine. Yeah.
Okay. Awesome. A couple of the other questions. Someone had asked if replacing the infotainment screen required any kind of programming or encoding after replacement, or any kind of configuration. I'm not sure if that's something you know as well.
Great question. It does not. So the screen itself is actually a display screen. But what I will say is that once you're inside that media control unit, you are dealing with ribbon cables. So just make sure you've got your softest pair of gloves on when you're starting to pull those things out. But no, it's a plug and play replacement.
Awesome. And then I think the last question that we'll probably get into has to do with the 12-volt battery and replacement of that. I'm sure many of our customers, as are you, Aaron, are familiar with BMWs and some of the new Mercedes and a lot of the new Porsches and Volkswagen Audi, Volvos, and I think some even Fords, that after fitting a 12-volt battery, there's some type of configuration process, whether it be registration or scanning in a BMS label. Anything like that on the 12-volt systems for Tesla?
So there's no configuration changes, or excuse me, there's no registering of the battery. As long as the battery looks the same as the one you took out. And what I mean by that, which is going to be a little hairy when you get to the third-party options, there were some batteries that changed from lead acid to another chemical compound. But as long as you're changing from 12 volt to 12 volt, the same compound, there's nothing else you have to do. It's a plug and play as well.
Awesome, awesome. And I think probably the last one here, there was a couple people inquiring about Opus IBS and Autologic and whether we're going to be offering software for these vehicles. So I know that currently we are starting to manufacture and sell cables, I believe. And I believe that is actually kicking off in just a week or two, I believe right around April 1st, if I'm not mistaken. So we are going to be selling cables. I know that the immediate plan is to utilize the Tesla software. We may be working on developing some of our own software down the line, but the immediate plan is going to be definitely to be utilizing the OE software. So hopefully that answers those questions. And let me just see if there's any final wrap-ups that we need. Yeah, it looks like we're good there. I mean, that was excellent information, Aaron. I'm sure everyone, along with myself, appreciates it greatly. It's definitely good to get a good baseline on the vehicles, better understanding. That way when they come in, they're not so foreign and we can speak on them fluently. And hopefully we can squeeze some more content out of you in this in this coming year towards the end for some specific stuff.
I was gonna say, guys, there's still so much to talk about. Autopilot, HV components, architecture, alignments, Toolbox 3. I mean, you guys could have me for hours. So there will definitely be more content, I'm sure. But you know what we were really hoping, and I was really hoping today, is to kind of give you guys that head start onto this new amount of customers. That it's not if you guys are going to take it, it's when are you guys going to start taking these customers. Knowledge is power, and I have that knowledge, and Opus is out, and we're ready. So I hope that I've at least given you guys an open door to start this.
Absolutely, we appreciate it. With that said, we want to thank everyone for joining, and we will get in touch on the next webinar, and definitely check us out if you're in the need for a DrivePro Remote Unlimited, and stay tuned for more on our Tesla support. Thanks,
Everyone have a great night.